Somewhere right now, a person is staring at a half-eaten bag of chips and running the same internal negotiation they have run approximately 400 times this year. The negotiation will end the same way it always ends. This failure will then be diagnosed as a willpower problem, a sugar addiction, a dopamine issue, an emotional eating pattern, a character flaw requiring a program. The American weight loss industry collected $96 billion last year from people running this negotiation and losing it. That industry has one structural problem with explaining why every diet ultimately fails. There is no revenue in the explanation. Explaining the evolutionary hunger response generates $0. Selling you another program generates $96 billion. So the explanation consistently fails to appear in the program. Understanding it will not make the negotiation stop, but it will permanently redirect where the blame lands.
The bone sites of the Pleistocene do not appear in any weight loss advertisement, which is unfortunate because they explain everything those advertisements cannot. What they document is a methodical escalation through every available caloric resource, stage by stage, to a conclusion that your biology textbook left blank. Before this story ends, you will understand why every diet ultimately fails at the biological level, why your brain generates genuine anxiety when a meal gets skipped despite a full kitchen 2 rooms away, and why the most extreme chapter in prehistoric human survival turned out to be the most logically coherent decision any group in that situation could have made. The story starts with bones, and it ends somewhere considerably further down the same list. When a prehistoric hunting group stripped a large animal of everything obviously edible, the work did not end there. It moved to the bones. Researchers examining Pleistocene sites across multiple continents identified percussion tools with wear patterns from thousands of repeated strikes against dense cortical bone, designed specifically to crack femurs open and extract the marrow inside. Bone marrow runs between 50 and 95% fat by caloric density, placing it among the richest energy sources available in any environment without a delivery app. Groups returned to previously stripped kill sites to process bones earlier visits had left intact.
Skeletal populations from this period carry healed growth arrest lines, biological signatures written in calcium documenting severe restriction followed by recovery, followed by restriction again, in rhythms tracking the seasonal movement of prey the way a crash and recovery chart tracks a market. Your Stone Age ancestor spent more time cracking open femurs than any modern athlete spends in a gym. But the femur stage was the easy version of starvation. The harder version came when the cold deepened and the herds did not return on schedule.
When the bones ran out, the sequence continued. We blame modern binge eating on algorithms and food marketing and stress, fairly enough, but the behavioral template underneath runs 290,000 years deeper than any app. Certain clay deposits provide bioavailable minerals and bind plant toxins in the roots and bark that become edible during shortage periods. Bark from specific tree species yields extractable starches when processed correctly. Sinew and untanned leather produce a caloric broth when boiled long enough. Your ancestors ate their shoes, technically. The behavioral architecture that produced that sequence runs an identical program in your body today. The urgency your body generates when a meal gets delayed, the difficulty concentrating, the specific irritability that arrives around hour 4 of an unplanned fast, that represents the same program activating at its lowest possible setting. The full activation looked considerably more serious. Picture the 4th month. The herds moved south earlier than anyone predicted, and winter sealed the valley before the group could follow. Stored food ran out in week 6. The bark came off every tree within a day's walk. The leather from 3 seasons of hunting had been boiled and consumed. The broth divided, the residue chewed until there was nothing left to chew. And outside the cave entrance, The cold showed no interest in becoming spring. Archaeologists across multiple European sites have documented the physical aftermath of these extended crisis periods: healed fractures from falls during severe weakness, bone surface texture indicating muscle wasting, growth arrest lines arriving closer and closer together as the body recorded deprivation after deprivation. The group inside that cave still had one item left on the list, and unlike everything that came before it, this item was not somewhere outside.
There is a point in any sustained crisis where the remaining options stop being options and become arithmetic. Every calorie available in the immediate environment represented the margin between the group reaching spring or not reaching spring. The human body contains approximately 100,000 calories of accessible stored energy. That fact, in the 4th month of a glacial winter with the list otherwise exhausted, did not remain a neutral anatomical observation. Forensic anthropologist Silvia Bello has studied the physical evidence of what happened next at the most precisely documented of these sites, in Somerset, England. Her findings required considerable time to correctly interpret, and the interpretation was not comfortable. The bones at Gough's cave in Somerset date to approximately 14,700 years ago. The cut marks running along the shafts match deliberate defleshing strokes placed to maximize recovery of attached muscle tissue, executed with the same technical methodology applied to the horse and bison remains found at the same location. 3 human skulls had been shaped into bowls by careful secondary knapping. Their edges worked with the same expertise applied to every other tool at the site. Isotope analysis confirmed the individuals belonged to the local group, not enemies captured from a rival band, not strangers found outside in the cold, but people who had shared the same fire. Bello describes the Gough's cave assemblage as among the most methodically executed processing sequences in the entire Paleolithic record. The same precision, the same tool technique, the same expertise as any successful hunt. The people who did this were not operating outside their social framework. They were the ones who made it to spring, who had children, whose children had children, and whose survival program now runs in the brain sitting behind your eyes, in the body that opened a chip bag for the 4th time tonight and told itself that one was definitely the last. The people who survived that winter did not leave you their names. They left you their metabolism. Agriculture arrived thousands of years later and was supposed to solve the problem. It scaled it up instead, concentrating survival onto single crops and distributing starvation to millions simultaneously when those crops failed. And the body that survived every version of this, from the glacial cave to the failed harvest, carried the same calibration into every environment that followed, including the one with the supermarket on the corner and the delivery app on the phone. Here is the fact: the $96 billion industry has the least financial incentive to explain. When your caloric intake drops below a certain threshold, your body does not read diet. It reads famine onset, and it activates the full countermeasure suite. Metabolic rate drops, hunger amplifies, satiety weakens, and the system begins preserving every available calorie for the emergency it has been anticipating for 290,000 years. The populations carrying the highest genetic frequencies of aggressive fat storage today descend from the populations whose ancestors survived the most catastrophic food insecurity. The body that stored most efficiently made it to spring. The body that stored less frequently did not. Natural selection did not care about waistlines. It cared exclusively about who was still breathing when the prey returned. The optimization ran for 290,000 years. It does not stop because the refrigerator is full. We built a civilization so well stocked, so reliably convenient, so endlessly available, that it quietly rendered the most successful survival program in biological history entirely unnecessary, and then charged $96 billion a year to fight it. The craving that overrides your intentions at 10 o'clock at night
does not represent a character flaw. The diet that failed for the fourth consecutive time does not represent insufficient willpower. The body storing fat against your explicit instructions does not represent a broken metabolism. All three represent the same survival record, written in appetite and adipose tissue by people who made it out of winters that killed everyone around them. Understanding that does not make the negotiation easier. It makes the negotiation honest. Next time, we look at what your ancestors did when weeks of starvation left them needing to think, hunt, and lead with a brain running on almost nothing, and what that emergency fuel system is still doing inside your skull today.